Hello, everyone. This is Data Driven Chat, and today I'm very excited to introduce Sunil Kappal to you. Hi, Sunil. Nice to see you.
Hey, Ganna. Thanks for having me on the show.
So Sunil is a service delivery leader in analytics, and he's also freelance advanced analytics consultant. And he has done some amazing work in data analytics, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So
thank you, Ganna.
So just to kind of jump straight into it, so your work focuses on data analytics, and on your LinkedIn profile, it also says that you one of your interests is people analytics, and we haven't actually talked much about people analytics in the series, and I thought it would be nice to kind of go into deeper into this topic. So for people who never heard about people analytics, can you just explain a little bit what is it? What is this field?
Sure. So people analytics, before we talk about people analytics, let me just give you some numbers that are going to put things into perspective. Why people talk so less about people analytics, why you don't hear a lot of industry specialists talking about people analytics. So across the globe, we have approximately 4.5 million HR professionals. Of those 4.5 million HR professionals, there are only 9,500 professionals who practice people analytics. So people analytics is something where we try to draw conclusions using employee data. People analytics is also known as HR analytics or talent analytics. There is so much of information available within the human resource information system within the organization. So they would really want to understand that how a particular employee may end up behaving during their appraisals while they are servicing a customer, or how long they're going to stick with the organization. And these kind of things, when organizations they start talking about, they're actually talking about people analytics. Traditionally, people analytics was workforce analytics as well. You may have heard a lot of MIS teams working on various aspects of data, and they are trying to make sense of how much time an employee will going to stay within the organization. I may be repeating myself, but these are the key things that happens within people analytics. And just so let you know, this is quite prevalent in the contact center industry, or so to say in the customer service industry, where you have a set of people who would really want to understand how their representatives or their employees may behave in a particular scenario. I'll give you an example. There are certain customer satisfaction scores that plays into the picture of contact center analytics. What people analytics team do is they try to draw an intersection in between their HR data and their customer service data, the customer sentiment data that has been delivered by a particular agent, and then they try to merge these two information, and then they say that my tenured representative is bound to deliver better services because they know the product in and out, compared to a person who's a fresher. So these are the kind of things. Employee turnover is another aspect that falls into the kitty of people analytics. How long an employee will going to stay. I know there are certain behaviors that are being showcased by employees. So you take down those behaviors as a data point, could be a binary data point, and then you try to make some predictions. You try to analyze how an employee will going to behave. So by and large, this is what people analytics is all about. Whether you need to pay overtime, if you pay overtime, how long your employee will going to stay, or will they be happy to do the overtime, those kind of things. So that falls under the ambit of people analytics.
Yeah, sounds fascinating. So I'm sure we will discuss this in a little bit more detail as we go along the interview today. But a lot of people who watch this series and listen to us either in podcast form or watch us on YouTube, they're very much interested also in getting into data analytics, and they're aspiring data scientists. So one of the things that I'm interested in is how do people get into data analytics. So can you tell us a little bit more about your personal journey? How did you become
Sure.
interested in data analytics? Why
Well,
did you think that, oh, this is what I want to do with my life?
yeah, so it's quite an interesting question. Why? Because I've been a literature student throughout my life. Okay, throughout my student life, I'm a I'm a person who might get scared of numbers, but not now anymore because it's been quite a while since I'm working with numbers. So if I talk about my personal journey, so in 1997, when I started my first job with one of the contact centers based out of India, my supervisor handed over an ACD report, which is Agent Call Duration Report. So that individual handed me the ACD report and asked me that look at the numbers and tell me what's so interesting about this report. And when I looked into that report, I had names of the agents, I had how much time they are taking to interact with the customer, but I wasn't able to make any sense. And I kept on thinking, talking to myself that, what can I do with these numbers? But anyhow, that was my first stint of looking at numbers. And then during my second employment, I was introduced to so-called Green Belt Six Sigma training. That was the point when I ventured into the into the total quality management. Where I was introduced to statistical terminology, statistical things. You perform statistical analysis. That was the point, and it was in 1999 when I said that I really want to get into this field. I really want to get into this field of data analytics. Because to me, at that point of time, correlation coefficient was something which was like, I've never heard of this. You can talk about Sherlock Holmes with me. You can talk about, all the great authors that we have, but correlation of coefficient, that does not make sense to me. So that was the point when I started getting into statistics. So I was introduced to statistics. I understood how probability works. And obviously, I was taking these courses side by side. There were very few, open source or so to say MOOCs courses. The way we have Coursera, we have all the other Allison and all the other great websites, those who deliver these courses. At that point in time, I did not have any of those sites. So I used to read books a lot. Okay. So I read the book on probability. I read a lot of books on statistics. And that's how I started developing interest and obviously practicing. Practicing is something that is integral to be a data analyst. I will not talk about data scientist or data science because for me, data analyst or data analysis is the core of anything that we are doing within data science. I mean, people may call it otherwise, or they may say that no, it is not the case. But for me, it's my own personal take on this. So once I started doing statistics, I was able to understand what exactly is the relevance of sampling. So that part of the game was taken care of by my own learning that I did. And then in 2011, I took courses on Allison. I did a lot of self-learning using Coursera. And today I've got 3 specializations and around 30 certificates in data analytics. Plus, I have tons and tons of knowledge of no-code or low-code applications because creating citizen data scientists was is also another aspect. And at that point in time, I was not aware of because this term is coined recently. So in a nutshell, I sort of did a lot of self-learning, reflection, retrospection, just to understand what are those things that I'm able to understand, where do I need to refresh my knowledge and stuff like that. So this is how I actually started my data science journey. And one thing that I want to say, I'm a big fan of Professor Feynman, and his way of learning things actually makes a lot of sense to me. If I'm unable to understand something, I may end up writing it down, or once I have started practicing a particular routine, for instance, linear regression, okay, how do I need to optimize it? I need to understand the theory behind it. And if I'm unable to understand the theory behind it, then I may not be able to optimize it. So whatever I've been able to understand, I'll write it down, and then I'll find flaws within my understanding, and then I'll overcome those flaws. And that's how I've learned, data analytics.
Yes,
So that has been my personal journey.
Yeah, sounds like a combination of we had all sorts of different journeys on this in the series, and sounds like it's really a combination of it's kind of education and self-learning and projects. So that's
Absolutely.
really very interesting journey.
Yeah.
So again, to kind of introduce you better to our audience. If I asked you to pick one thing that you are particularly proud about, something that you consider the most important thing that you have done in your career to date, what would it be?
I believe, so let me just put it this way. So something that I've achieved in my career, awards and accolades, they are altogether a different ballgame, and I will definitely talk about those as well. But one thing which goes a long way that I've achieved in my career is, the knack of learning. I think the kind of industry we are in, it is so much evolving. There are so many new things that are happening every day, new technology being introduced every day. If you don't have a knack of learning, then probably you may not excel in your job. So that is one thing that I have sort of not achieved, but yes, I have kind of learned by working within data analytics industry, so to say. So learning is something which is very important to me. And then the other thing in terms of awards and accolades that I'm really very proud of, being a literature student, in year 2017, I gave tech talks in University of Texas, Dallas. I think that was something which I was really proud of, because while I was talking about my experience, I was talking with, people who are from the computer background, who are from the mathematics background, who are from, all that, STEM kind of cream that you see. I was speaking in front of them, and I was trying to tell them that, everything resides here. If you have passion, if you are committed towards what you really want to be, you can really do that. So I think that in a nutshell, these are the kind of things, I will not say grit, perseverance, knack of learning, and obviously my authority at whatever level I am right now, I think I'm really very proud of.
Yeah, definitely sounds like sounds like a great like all these things are very noteworthy, and you mentioned a whole range, I guess, of things. Again, considering that again, the majority of our audience are kind of aspiring data scientists, so people who want to do more data science in their and data analytics in their businesses. So if I asked you to maybe recall one of the most exciting projects that you worked on, that could be quite different from achievement, right? It's just a project. Right. What would you pick? What would be this project that you were particularly excited about?
Yeah. So, well, honestly speaking, being the kind of person I am, I almost get excited about everything that I'm passionate about. But yeah, being a freelancing consultant or a trainer, I will call myself a freelancer, advanced analytic trainer. You are expected to answer almost all the questions, for your trainees, for your mentees, and everyone. But just think about it, we are humans. We don't have the ability to be always available, for everyone. So with that thought, what I did, I created Google Dialogflow chatbot. I used the Google Dialogflow framework to create a chatbot, because whenever I train people on statistics, whenever I train somebody on a parametric or a non-parametric test, they tend to have a lot of questions, because it is such a vast topic that you cannot cover everything and everyone cannot understand everything. So what I did, I created a chatbot where if you're going to ask certain questions about hypotheses based on whether your data is, categorical or continuous, what sort of information you're trying to get through this, hypothesis test, they're going to get specific name of the test that they need to implement with an explanation. And if there are any questions which are tough to answer, which requires a lot of involvement of the trainer, that particular name would be routed to me through the chatbot, where I can call them up, I can have a one-on-one conversation, and I can explain things to my trainees. So I think that this helped me to be sort of available and approachable in the most logical manner by reducing the noise of answering, simple or standard questions, and then trying to be available for those who really need your help. So this was one of the projects which is very, very close to me, because that gave me a lot of exposure into how I can deliver, to best of my capabilities by using artificial intelligence, by using machine learning methods, and by using simple chatbot, frameworks.
Brilliant. So your personal experience was a combination of rather traditional education and learning through online courses and participating in various projects. So if you had to give an advice to people who want to get into data analytics, what would you advise them to do? So if someone just wants to get into the field, should they get formal education, or should they get a project maybe, or should they first study something online?
I think this is a great question, and I a lot of my trainees and a lot of people with whom I interact, those who are not from the STEM field, they tend to ask these questions a lot. And I think that to some extent, in an ideal scenario, you have to have a blend of education plus project plus a compelling portfolio. But for people like me who are not from a similar educational background, where I'm not a STEM student, I'm a literature student, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that we need to ensure that we have an impeccable portfolio. And portfolio consists of projects. Portfolio consists of your achievements that may lure prospect or an potential employer to hire you. So portfolio goes a long way. But when it comes to education, I think having a degree, it's amazing. If you don't have a degree, don't feel bad about it. All you can do is you can take so many courses which are readily available and then practice them. So once you have taken the course, it doesn't mean that you're done and dusted. No, you have to practice whatever you have learned. Then you create your project. And once you have created your project, then you have to knit all this information in a portfolio that can be communicated in a very eloquent manner to your potential employers. So there is no straight answer to this question, honestly speaking, Ganna. So in my opinion, it's totally dependent on the individual, how they sell their skills. At the end of the day, if you cannot communicate, if you cannot sell your capabilities by communicating it effectively to the employer, whether you have a STEM degree or not, it'll not gonna make any difference. Your degrees will not gonna make a difference if you don't have a compelling portfolio and and the most effective way to communicate who you are. So this is how I think about the question that you have asked.
Mm-hmm. I want to kind of draw on your experience as a consultant and as a person who works with businesses a lot, right? In a sense, data in business is not an alien concept. So we had data in business since God knows when. But in your opinion, why is understanding data particularly important now? So what is about the current time that makes data a particularly important topic? And in a sense, what I'm also interested in, do you think we see that the businesses explore the data potential to the limit now, or is it just that we kind of understand that there is potential, but we didn't really touch on what the data could do for us yet in business?
I think for business, data now is very, very important. So let's talk about 10 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago from now. There was not much of data available so that you can play around with and you can make sense out of it. Okay, most of the analytics teams or analytics-based organizations, they were working like a bioinformatician, if you will. You're working on samples and then you're making sense of the data. Then you're saying there's this much probability of this happening. But now you have a 360-degree view of your business. You have a view of how your customer perceives your business. That is a separate set of data. You know how your organization stocks are performing. That's a separate set of data. You know how your people are performing by the way of people analytics. You have a separate set of data. And once you merge all these data, just think about it. What kind of information, what kind of insight it's going to bring? Okay. Today is the time when you should not be thinking about going with your gut feeling. Intuitions are good, but they are not that good when they are just being used, in isolation. You have to use your domain skills backed up with data, and that is why in business scenario, data is very, very important. And then there are other aspects of it as well. So just think about it. I was reading an article. I think it was from Gartner, if I'm not wrong. At least 25 to 27% of not 25, 74% of venture capitalists, those who are trying to bring some money or inject some money into a startup, they always like to use data to make that decision. They will never, ever take a decision based on, I think that this is a good, the name of the company is good, and I think that these people are genuine. Let me just go ahead and invest a couple of $1 million. No, they really want to understand how this particular startup is, working in terms of their core skills and what sort of people they have and how much capability and potential they have, purely based on data. And then they are investing. So I think that now data is something which is very, very important and crucial for any business. And that's what my belief is.
So I want to kind of expand a little bit on this topic and ask you a little bit more about the current time when we're living in at the time of a pandemic that affected everybody's life. Yeah. And, we had all sorts of people in the series with different opinions about what data and data analytics could bring to the solution of the current, or helping solve the current crisis. So some of them say that, we shouldn't really intervene as data analysts, we should leave it to domain experts. Others say, oh, definitely we should be helping. So in your opinion, does data analytics have a place in helping the community, society, humanity as a whole to get out of this crisis? Or does it hurt rather than, help? So in your opinion, which one is it?
Yeah. So there are both sides to it, and I'll give you an example. Data analytics, especially in the COVID era, okay, or for that fact, in any epidemic or pandemic, you cannot consider data analytics as a panacea. Okay, it's not a panacea. It is something that can bring you closer to a potential solution, but it cannot be a solution in itself. And why I say that, I'll give you one example. So let's take an example of COVID. You may have seen on so many social platforms, there are so many of us who are trying to interpret COVID data, looking at the time series, performing time series analysis, and then trying to understand that whether it is going to move up or whether it is going to move down. They are purely looking at data. What they are not bringing into it, they're not bringing the human behavior part of it. I have the data which tells me that what is the mortality rate, how fast the infection is spreading. But what I don't know is why it is spreading like that. What can I do to stop that, spread? And most of the time, all the UNs of the world or WHOs of the world, they are talking about, hey, put a mask on your face. Try to wash your hands regularly. That is the part of human behavior. And those interpretations, purely based on COVID infection data, they are incomplete without bringing in the human aspect of it. Until the time you're not bringing the behavior aspect along with the data, you may not be able to create a foolproof solution to any pandemic. And I'll say that this is my personal take. This is my personal opinion. But what I believe is that if you really want to control any disease, you need to take into account not only the behavior part of not only the data part of the disease, but also the human behavior part of it. And then you try to think about if we can create a solution. More than a vaccine, what is important today, in my opinion, is how many people they are adhering to the fact that they should be wearing a mask. They should be washing their hands regularly. They should be keeping a distance that has been, that is a preferred distance, so to say, to ensure that, the disease does not spread too fast. So data is directional. Data tells me what the situation, at the ground level looks like. But when it comes to creating a solution, you need to couple data along with the human behavior aspect of it. And then you think about, creating a data analytical solution. So that's what I think about this one.
Yeah, so that's very interesting, and you kind of started to touch on some of the challenges, right, for the future that we might encounter going forward. So, kind of zooming out onto the big picture. So, what do you think are the main challenges or the main problems that data analytics has today? So, what are these main problems that we need to solve?
So, two biggest problems that I see today when we talk about data. One of the biggest problem is data cleanliness. How clean my data is. Whenever you want to draw an insight out of a data, and if your data is not clean, you may end up getting information which is not relevant or half-baked information, so to say. So that is one of the biggest problem or challenges that we face today as far as the data analytics, or the data is concerned. That is one of the biggest problems, because 80% of the time, analysts, they spend to clean the data, and 20% of the time, they try to glean insight out of that data. That is one aspect of it. And once again, I think that, this comes to me very naturally, being a literature student. And I think that if you cannot communicate your analysis, you're losing the battle there and then. I have, in my 20 years of experience, I have never ever seen an executive who's entrusted to know that which accuracy metric you used when you were creating a predictive model for me. Nobody wants to understand what is AIC. I'm talking about the C-suite level people. Not that they are not interested, but they don't have time. They really want to take quick action. So you really need to equip them. And if you cannot explain or communicate your analysis effectively to the executives, then you are kind of leaving your analysis at the mercy of the audience, and they can make any interpretation. So I think communication plays an important role. And you will be surprised to know that 80% of machine learning projects, they do not move beyond the proof of concept stage. Only 20% of these, these projects, they see the implementation part of it. And why is that? Because at times we are not we are getting too technical we are using so many jargons that we somehow end up, moving away from the big picture. What executive wants to know in terms of data. So you said that what are the biggest challenges of the data? The biggest challenges of the data is interpretation. And if I'm trying to sell you something and I'm unable to communicate the positives without getting into the details of why you should be using my model or why you should be using my technique, you're not going to buy it. You will not agree with it. So you really need to be in a situation where you not only create something which is compelling, but you also end up creating something which is which you can communicate very easily. And if you're able to take care of these two things, I think that rest of the challenges we can handle. But getting your getting your predictive modeling project passed through the executive level is one of the biggest challenges that I think today we all are facing as data analysts in the data analytics industry.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that because most of the time you're just trying to kind of get some very clear messages across, and also all these issues with data quality that you mentioned definitely are familiar to me, and I'm sure many other people who work with data.
Right.
And kind of moving swiftly on from the challenges, I also want to ask you, so what is the future? How do you think data analytics will develop in the next 5 years? What would be the hot topics? What should we look out for?
I think the future is bright. The future is bright because if we look at, so I always go by numbers. Okay, I just don't want to make statements that are just statements, not backed up by data, because at the end of the day, that's what I do. So the compound annual growth for data analytics industry is almost 12.3%. And that is from 2019 to 2027. And if we move at this pace, there would be a whole lot of demand. There would be a whole lot of demand for data analytics, for data analysts as professionals, for citizen data scientists, especially people like me who are not too much into coding. But yeah, I can do a little bit of coding, but I always prefer being called as a citizen data scientist because I believe that I'm sort of reachable. I can talk the lingo of a layman in terms of how should I be explaining this analysis. So the future, as I said, it looks quite bright, and there are so many avenues that data analytics has opened. Okay, you talk about artificial intelligence. You talk about the natural language generation. I still remember 5 years ago we used to spend an entire day to slice and dice the data and then write the observations out of data. But now you have natural language generation, applications where you just simply put in the data and it's going to make all those inferences on your behalf. And then you plug in your domain expertise with that. And that's how you create compelling story. And that's how you create data analytics as an industry more valuable. Because all the businesses across the globe, they are generating data day in, day out. I, as an individual, if I want to download an application from Google Play Store or iOS Play Store, all I have to do is I have to just, first of all, read the reviews, how many stars, and then I download that application. And the same information is being broadcasted to the organization, and then they can use it. And that's why we do a lot of cohort analysis. We want to understand how a particular customer, for how long they stayed, they use my application, so on and so forth. So I think that if we talk about the potential of data analytics in coming 5 years, it's going to be immense. It's going to move from basic data munging to deep analytics in terms of intermingling the behavior part of the human being along with the data, and then all those cool stuff that we do. I think that the future is bright. Yeah,
definitely. So you have talked, you have shared a lot of insight with us today, and I also want to ask you we're kind of coming almost to the end of the interview, and I want to ask you, what is it that you are doing right now? What keeps you awake at night? What makes you excited, considering all the things that you mentioned and that the future is bright? So what is it that you are up to now?
So, so what I'm doing right now, I'm currently working on my second book. So I'm writing a book, Business Analytics for Rookies. My first book was Statistics for Rookies, because I really want to make data analytics something which is available to each and every individual. I just don't want this field to be specific to a set of people, because when we make things in isolation, or when we, when we say that these things are only for these people, we are not talking about its effective usefulness. So that is the reason why I'm writing this second book, which is Business Analytics for Rookies. So that is something that I'm working on apart from my full-time job and my freelance trainings and stuff. That is something that I'm doing. And what keeps me awake at night, obviously my job. I work during the US timings. That is sort of from a perspective of my job. But figuratively talking about, I think that I'm writing. I'm doing a lot of research in terms of data visualization. That is something which is really, really very interesting to me. And I have read so many books of Sir Edward Tufte, and I think that he has got some great points that he made in his book. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a paper where I would like to show how effectively you can communicate through data visualization without using a lot of technical stuff or jargon to the audience who are not exposed to these technicalities of the trade. So that is another aspect that I'm kind of working on. So with all these things happening, even when I'm sleeping, I'm kind of thinking about what sort of visualization I can use when I'm looking at this kind of data. And obviously, I really want to ensure that this time my research paper is selected in at least one go, because it took me quite a while. So these are the things that are keeping me awake at night.
Yeah, brilliant. And so I just want to say, for those of you guys who are watching us on YouTube, you will see the links to Sunil's book, the first book, in the description, as well as his social media whereabouts, where you can find him and connect. So please do so. Now I have kind of a set of questions that I traditionally ask everyone, and a lot of people complain because I impose some restrictions on these questions. So the first question is, if I ask you to recommend one book and one film, what would you recommend? Well, it doesn't have to be a data analytics book. It could be just a book that you like and keep going back to, and similar with the film.
So just think about it. Day in, day out, when we are dealing with data, when we are dealing with high expectations, you tend to feel a little low at times because you cannot deliver every time. Okay, that is why my other side is spirituality aspect of it. Okay, so one of my favorite books is the Book of Mirdad, and that book actually helps you to understand your own self in such a way that you feel liberated. You feel relaxed. It is around a monastery which is kind of situated on top of a hill, and it talks about that how a person who's a spiritual being should think about getting liberated and thinking about nirvana. So this is one of my favorite books, and I read it whenever I feel a little low. And as far as the movie is concerned, The Man Who Knew Infinity. This movie is based on the most popular Indian mathematician Ramanujan, and I think that it is one of the best movies that I have seen. And it not only gives you a glimpse of if you remember, you asked me a question that you want to understand my journey of data analytics. And if you watch this movie, you will see that how a person who does not have a degree ends up being a fellow of Oxford University, in England, purely based on his passion, purely based on his commitment about the about the craft that he's good at. I think that it's quite an amazing movie, and I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, brilliant, and brilliant suggestions that I don't think anyone named before in our series. So fantastic. Thank you so much for this, Sunil. And here's a final question that I added for the 2021 series. And it kind of tries to more get into the psychology of the interviewee, if you will. So who is your most favorite fictional character? So if I ask you to pick one fictional character, who would it be?
Honestly speaking, Sherlock Holmes. Okay. Sherlock Holmes, why? Because he always used to dig deep into the facts and then used to bring in a lot of relevant and so to say incorrect information just to clear the air around him and to solve the mysteries. That's how I think about myself. When I look at the data, I just don't go by how the data looks like. I try to dig deep. Then I try to make relationships in terms of what all other data sets are available, and then create an inference which is not only compelling, but is also goal-oriented. So that's why I think that, Sherlock Holmes, I relate, a lot in terms of when I'm working on data, I'm kind of wearing his hat, and then I'm trying to dig things from data.
Yeah, brilliant. It's also, I think he's one of the most focused people, right? Because he kind of had this interesting theory that you shouldn't remember certain things because you should be, remember other things, and like your brain cannot take all the information, so you should remember relevant information. So that's definitely that's definitely one of the also important characteristics of Sherlock Holmes. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
Sunil, thank you so much for finding the time to talk to me today. This was absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure a lot of people will find a lot of interesting insights from what you said today. And you touched on so many topics, including, the building your personal journey in data analytics, and also the importance of passion, the importance of data quality, challenges that we face in terms of data interpretation. So all of these thoughts, I think, are very valuable. And thank you so much again for coming onto the series today and sharing your insight.
Lovely, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, Ganna. I truly appreciate for having me on your show. Means a lot. Thank you. Truly appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.